Hi, hello, how are you? Welcome back to my channel. I'm Alex, the Bareback Contessa, and welcome to another episode of Soup or Salad, the series where I take a pound of dried beans and turn them into both a meal prepped soup and a meal prepped salad. Today we're making a soup and a salad that feature the butternut squash. It is fall right now. They are in season. They are cheap. They are a great way to bulk up a meal. If you don't like butternut squash or you want to use something else, you could sub this out for really any hearty root vegetable. Any other kind of squash, carrots, sweet potatoes, turnips, parsnips, anything that you can withstand some roasting or some simmering would be amazing in these two recipes. So the first thing I want to do is break down this butternut squash. I like to cut it in half, roughly where the bottom starts to bulb out. And then you have these two pieces. Now you could peel it, but I frankly can't be bothered. So I just shave around it. I think that peeling takes so long and I frankly hate my vegetable peeler. This is a lot quicker. You have a little bit of waste, but I'm not so worried about that. This is just going to go into either compost or I will use it to make a beautiful, delicious veggie stock. Also, you can eat the skin. Once you roast it or cook it down, it is perfectly edible. It might be a little tough, but if you really don't feel like peeling it at all, you can eat it. All right, I'm going to scoop out the insides and be right back. All right, let's finish dealing with the squash. Now, whatever vegetable or squash you are using, you're going to want about 2 pounds of it. It is going to be split among both recipes. For the miso butternut squash stew, it's going to be simmered. And then for the squash and farro salad, it's going to be roasted at a high heat along with the beans. These are going right in my scrap bag for stock. Now I'm going to break the squash down into about 1-inch pieces. That way they will cook relatively quickly and at relatively the same time. This will be for the soup. And this half will be for the salad. I'm going to cut it into 1-inch planks, then wedges, and then across. Planks, wedges, and across. I'm going to get the squash right onto a lined baking sheet. Along with half of the beans that I cooked this morning. Now this is 1 pound of great northern beans that I soaked overnight. Then I let them simmer in heavily salted water for close to 1.5 hours. Gonna hit those with a good bit of olive oil, a couple tablespoons, big pinch of salt, pepper. Let's give that a toss. All right, and those are going into a 425-degree oven for 20 to 30 minutes until the squash is tender and everything is starting to crisp up. Now let's talk beans. This is 1 pound of great northern beans that I soaked in cold water overnight and then simmered just in heavily salted water for about 1 hour to 1 hour and 20 minutes. If you do not want to cook your beans from dry, you can use 4 cans of beans of choice, drained and rinsed. I love beans and I love cooking them from dry. I think you can get a lot more flavor and a lot more versatility out of them. You can go as simple as I did with just salted water, or you can add in any spices you would like. You can add in aromatics to simmer. You can use chicken stock, homemade veggie stock, whatever you want to inject flavor into those beans. And I can guarantee whatever you do, they're going to be more delicious than what you get out of a can. They're also incredibly cheap and they last forever. If you have really old beans, they might take a little bit longer to cook, but that's one pro of soaking them overnight. When you soak your beans overnight, it's going to cut your cooking time almost in half, and you're going to wind up with a much more evenly cooked end product. Let's do the rest of the prep for the miso and squash stew. I'm going to thinly chop 2 shallots, but you can use whatever oniony thing you have on hand or whatever is on sale. They're also going right in my stock bag. These are some funky shaped shallots. All right, let's get that end cut. Get them separated. Now I'm going to thinly slice these across. And we're going to thinly slice some garlic cloves the same way. Now, because I want these thinly sliced, I'm not going to smash them. I'm going to cut off the butt end and then peel the skin off that way. You can also hold your knife like this, peel it off like that. But if you're using a butcher's knife, that's a little scary. And you don't have to go overboard, but try to get this as thin as you can. We are going to be slowly and put that right in with our shallots. Now to a cold pan, I'm adding a good amount of olive oil in those shallots and garlic. Going in with a good pinch of salt and some cracked pepper. Now by starting these aromatics over a low heat, the flavor is going to slowly infuse into the oil. You could also add a good dash of hot red pepper flakes right here. That would be really good. I'm keeping spices to a minimum because my partner is still really sensitive to spice. So we're just going to let that do its thing for a good 5 minutes or so, 5-10 minutes, until the shallots and the garlic are just starting to brown around the edges. Garlic is starting to smell really nice and toasted. You can see a little bit of brown on the shallots. I'm going to go in with that butternut squash that we reserved. Toss to coat. I'm going to go in with the other half of those beans. And about a cup of bean liquid. I'm going to let that simmer for about 20 minutes or until the squash is tender. And meanwhile, let's get working on the rest of our salad. Now this is a farro and squash salad that I have adapted from Smitten Kitchen and have been making for years. It combines a super simple vinaigrette with punchy feta and some crunchy pepitas on top, or the nut of your choice. It's just a really delightful fall salad that combines so many textures and flavors and just gets better as it sits in the fridge. I'm going to start with a finely diced shallot, or at least as finely diced as you are willing to go. Oh my god, this shallot is strong. Woo! All right, keep this all a little further. And that is good enough for me. Now that shallot is going to go in the bottom of a big mixing bowl, along with a big pinch of salt, about a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar or vinegar of your choice, a pinch of sugar. I'm going to go with honey, and about a tablespoon of water. Mix that all together while your vegetables roast. The vinegar is going to take the like raw edge out of the shallot and quickly pickle it. And it's going to be such a nice pop of flavor to the sweet roasted notes of the squash and beans. Let this sit aside for about a half hour. Our farro and our veggies are done. I've got my soaked shallot here going in with that freshly cooked farro. And I know farro can be a hard to find or kind of premium ingredient. You can substitute any grain you want. I think brown rice would be best. Quinoa would be good. I wouldn't use white rice because I don't like the way white rice eats when it's cold. And this is meant to be eaten cold for me. But any grain that you have on hand would be fantastic in here. Now I'm going to scrape these roasted veggies and beans into the bowl as well. Look at how beautiful those came out. They are fork tender. The beans got a little crispy. Oops, making a little bit of a mess. Oh, listen to that. Do you hear how crispy that bean got? Oh my gosh. Now this is optional, but I love the additional pop of flavor this gives. I love grating a raw clove of garlic over a piping hot mixture like this. I feel like it just barely takes the raw bite out of it and really infuses a delicious and pungent garlic flavor without that raw intensity. Oh, Jesus. One clove is enough. And it has to be microplaned. We're going to combine that with about 3 more tablespoons of olive oil, because this is a salad after all. And that makes a delicious vinaigrette with all of the other things going on in here. Oh, wow. Now, when the heat hits that shallot and the apple cider vinegar, it just it intensifies those smells immediately. This smells so good right now. I'm going to give it a little taste. That garlic really comes through. You get the brightness of the shallot, the vinegar. I think I'm going to add in some more lemon juice, but first I'm going to let this sit and cool while my soup finishes simmering. Let's bring this back over here. The squash is nice and tender. Those beans have started bursting. You can see that they made like a nice creamy sauce around them. Let's bring in our last few ingredients. Now off the heat, we're going to add in about a tablespoon of miso paste. And I'm going to grate in some parm. These two things are going to instantly up the savoriness. And even though this has only been cooking for about 30 minutes total, it's going to give them a really deep depth of flavor. Miso is not something that you want to add on the heat because high heat denatures its enzymes, and all of the good stuff in it are cooked. All of the good benefits of miso, the probiotics and all of that, are cooked off. So you want to add that off heat. And parm too, you want to add that off heat because otherwise it can split and become grainy. Last thing we're going to add is some lemon juice. It actually needs a little bit of sweetness, so I'm going to add a touch of honey and mix that through. And then let's add some nuts. All right, let's do a taste test. This is the soup, which I just topped with a little bit of olive oil, a little more grated parm, and some torn herbs. That tastes like it's been cooking for so much longer than 20 minutes. because we slowly infuse the oil with the garlic and shallots, that flavor really comes through. And I did wind up adding some crushed red pepper flakes, so I'm getting the heat on the back of my tongue. You don't taste the miso per se, but there's like a savoriness in the back of your palate that you really get. And that little bit of lemon and honey at the end just really helped round everything out and brighten it up. It tastes fantastic. And let's try this salad. I topped it with some chopped walnuts and some crumbled feta. Like I said, I've been making this one for years, and I think it's so much greater than the sum of its parts. By taking the time to let the shallot quickly pickle, you wind up with a little bit of a briny flavor that you might not have gotten otherwise, that really brightens up what could otherwise feel kind of heavy with the butternut squash, the beans, and the farro. I think this would be a great base for salad. Maybe add some massaged kale or some baby spinach. Serve some salmon on top if you wanted to. But on their own, both are very cheap, both are very filling, both are very hearty, and they only get better the more they sit in the fridge. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to follow for more soup and salad. Let me know what kind of beans I should use next time. Get the full recipes down below. All right, see you next time. Bye.